space for communication. The title Asian Digital Media Theory, Connection from the Silk Route between China and Sri Lanka. So, the aim of my idea is to explore Asia's journey from the historical Silk Route to the digital Silk Road. I am reinventing some concepts through the historical idea of the Silk Road. So its focus is how Asian philosophies can inspire a uniquely Asian digital media theory. The Silk Route and the digital Silk Route. The Silk Route as a communication corridor of ideas, art, and philosophy. Professor Wimal Dissanayake, who is my founding philosophy minister of China, later worked on how I states more keynote the connections between why we are impossible to create Asian knowledge in essence. So his keen argument is to make the Asian cultures, language, aesthetics, literature in order to make a cultural communication angle that gives a more threshold to emerge through more ethnographic ideas for the communication. The digital Silk Road as a new medium of interconnections via data and network is my hypothesis. The digital Silk Road means that how today widespread digital social media has made a threshold to emerge through diverse opinions, discussions, and news narratives. So China-Sri Lanka partnerships evolving from trade and culture for ages. The historic narrative says that while Sri Lanka and China has a strong link to the like-minded cultural assets from Greek religions, Buddhist thoughts and philosophies, and Asian mind. So, why we need an Asian digital media theory? The Western communication theories emphasize individualism, culturally, and modernity. The modernity is the concept that how in 18th century with the British industrial revolutions make a new insight that in which how the people's economy and the cultural life can be reinvented. Asian philosophies stress collectivity on the other hand, harmony and moral interdependence. It has been planted into a religious mind and people's collective essence of the collectivism. Scholars Yunnan University and Shelton from Minnesota call for contextual, culturally grounded theory accordingly. The school is theorizing from Asia for Asia. Scholars from Asian media scholarships, cultural philosophical foundations gives a good idea for this contextualization in order to theorize this fact. Especially Wimal Dissanayake in his 2009 article says that media as an aesthetic, ethical, and ritual processes. It's not only the passing and sending and transmitting news or information as said by those state fact with the Western interpretation, but Wimal Dissanayake in contrast says there's a kind of aesthetic, ethical, and ritual processes. The ritual mind is the fact that how Asian people collectively has been transformed. In this context, the Buddhist philosophy, the Paticca codependent arising, as a metaphor for digital interdependence. This is so interesting, contrastively, when you compare with the Newtonian physics, that how cause and effect relationships. It is neither cause and effect relationship that what Buddha has preached through the codependent arisings. That for an example, when there is eye, how we can make a sight. It's neither eye nor light, but how we can have the ability to see the world through our eyes. The eye neither happen without the light. Light is neither happen without the eye. Then who comes first? co-dependent arising. But later on, as David Calhoun, Buddhist philosopher, said that it's not the Newtonian physics analysis that cause and effect relationship. Metaphorically, the digital interdependence is like that. So I theorize in terms of the Asian knowledge power and heritage. For example, the Paticca co-dependent arising, as David Calhoun explained. Professor Narendra, who invented the soft power to China and later on the Australia, who's Joseph Nye's fellow in Harvard University, who has given some idea to the communication expertise, communication as a dialogue and mutuality. In that context, the cultural sides of knowledge has given a much threshold. Asia-centricity and de-westernization is the result of this discussion. Joseph Kamai from Hawaii University, in 2016 he emphasized, based on his 2007 idea, Asia-centric paradigm placing Asian experience at the center. For example, this says that whatever we are taking into consideration in the news space and as news narratives, Asian mind is there. So, juxtaposing with the Western concepts that are hugely entangled with the Western media concepts is the crisis and conflict that make essentially the coalitions. Professor Dayabusu is an Indian scholar from Jawaharlal Nehru University, later on worked in the Westminster University and now in the Hong Kong University, National University. He says that de-westernizing global media studies is the essence of our job as the media scholarships in the more or less Asia or Southeast Asia. For example, WeChat, TikTok, and Sri Lankan digital cultures emerging recently is as a collective and ethical ecosystem accordingly. So hybrid system and multi-scalar networks, Professor Chetan Duratha from Minnesota, who is arguing Asian media are hybrid and multi-layered, not oppositional to the Western world. For an example, Chetan Duratha says that based on Chinese religious concepts, Tao, and some of the philosophies, that why these are revealing even in the modern decades of digital media and the way how journalists are making their job as the news narratives. Professor Dayabusu in turn, in 2008, he said, communication and development in the digital South is a totally different angle of knowledge science. It's not reflecting the Western. China-Sri Lanka collaboration reflects new geopolitical communication flows current according to the geopolitics and the international communication intertwined. So, China-Sri Lanka, for ages from historical roots to the digital bridge, Fexian's 5th century pilgrimage, and cultural communication legacy as our chance. This has made more prominence and knowledge science for more explorations. Today, therefore, digital Silk Road collaborations in AI, education, and storytelling. In other words, what we are doing our young generation through the AI, either eChat or DeepSeek, is reflecting more our chances. For example, why young men creating their beauty or masculine side through the AI technologies is not we can't compare it with the Western way of how they are creating their minds and disease. A modern continuation of ancient cultural transmission is therefore very important. So this gives a more theoretical implications, interdependence over individualism therefore, and balance over binary according to the Gunaratna's idea, and contextual ethics, according to the Yoshitaka Mike and Dayabusu, and dialogic globalization, and hybrid epistemologies. So, for an example, there's a question. In 1960, there is a debate, East and West dialogue in Hawaii and Iowa University. Today, still is this relevant, according to me. So therefore, a future of shared digital humanity, the Silk Route as possibility, not rival. So therefore, it is neither no or, but there's a reciprocity philosophically, not rival. The digital Silk Road as intellectual empathy and co-creation. It's an intellectual empathy which gives a more eminence and insight for even Western intellectuals. Therefore, the Western scholars from States or UK or Germany or France think more insights that are more possible from the Asian or Southeast Asian knowledge hubs. Therefore, the culture has risen in science. Science is still, we are not validating that is coming from the Newtonian physics, cause and effect relationships, analysis of the perspective. But culture as a science, this calls to actions, develop Asian-born theories, rooted in wisdom, expressed digitally, and open to global dialogue. Thank you very much.